Coach Massi here from M2 Speed, Strength and Performance, Massi Machado Strength and Conditioning with another episode of Move Your Feet. And we're actually taking a little break today from our new build out. We're going to get some of you guys the footage you requested in the new build out. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We're actually doing some follow-ups from our presentation at the Chicago Perform Better Summit. It was an amazing time. Thanks to those who came out. We're in the lecture and we're also in the hands-on. It was awesome. I also know that I've been promising people a ground reaction force series. We're going to do the fundamentals of ground reaction force and work on through that. I also said I would do that to the participants at the Chicago Perform Better Summit, and I promise it's coming. But there's a couple of things we have to address. We had some great conversation with folks after our hands-on. We did a really awesome warm-up. We did some speed work. We did some power work. And it was a great time together, and it's also a time to talk. And as we were talking, we started talking about the concepts of activation, engagement, and ignition, and why I think those are different spheres. But I'm going to bring Coach Matt in real quick. So this is another completely unrehearsed episode. Matt just finished doing some leg work while I was doing some cleanup around these parts. And we're both not warm aside for that. You just did some heavy leg work and you're probably cooling down now. And we do this for a reason. Going back to what I had just mentioned, activation, engagement, and ignition. I have the opinion that they're different. We kind of use the term activation generically to refer to when we're getting ready for a workout. We get into tissue temperature. We get into maybe some band work. People kind of generally think of activation as getting prepared to train. We had a great conversation with some folks about activation, engagement, and ignition, and sort of what the differences were. And we like to be in the ignition state before we go into our session. So I guess that's a conversation for another day, except for the simple example of what would activation be? Well, activation would be if Matt's sleeping in bed. This is an analogy. And I went, hey, it's time to get up. And he went, oh, okay. He acknowledged me. He's aware that something's about to happen. Engagement would be that he didn't get up yet, and I go back to him and I say, Matt, come on, man. It's time to get out of bed now. He says, all right, Dad. He swings his legs over the bed. He puts his feet on the floor. Now he's at least engaged, a little bit more than activated. And then finally, he still didn't get up and get into action. Getting him ignited, I go in and I say, get up and let's get going, boy. And then all of a sudden, he hits his feet and he starts sprinting. He's fully ignited. He's into ignition. So one of the mobility warm-ups that we do that helps progress to complete ignition is something that we call the active 90-90. Now, I don't know how we keep winding up on mobility. There's so many amazing mobility people out there. You guys can search the archives and find people that know a gazillion times more about mobility than myself, including your local physical therapist. But we keep kind of getting back to the questions about what sort of mobility we do to cover the various layers of the activation, engagement, and ignition, much like the 7 layers of the candy cane forest. Now, so this movement is also deceiving in the sense that you may think one person's going to be really good at it, and in fact, the other person that you think is going to be less likely to perform it well is actually the person who performs it better. So we're going to both step back. So Matt, let's make a little space. So everybody knows what the 90-90 is, right? So when you get down into the 90-90, you have 90 degrees front, 90 degrees back. You got internal versus external rotation, external up front, internal here. Now, most people that are really studly can get into this and they can sit tall. I'm not as mobile as I used to be, but I've been trying to conduct this drill to sort of get through activation, engagement, and ignition to get more prepared for my training session. So I get in this position, I try to flatten my toe. And if somebody has a real hard time pushing up out of this, it's the 90-90 and we just make it active now. It's called the active 90-90. If somebody has problems getting into position, let them sort of readjust a little bit. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to kill the exercise. Matt's already playing around a little bit because he knows he's tight. So it's only working, basically this front side is where we want to be. We want to push into the ground around our knee to drive and to really activate, then engage, then ignite our glutes. So it's, you try to get as tall as you can and you're sitting up. We're pushing into the ground, which is actually abduction, and sitting back down. And we push, great glute activation, great glute engagement, working towards ignition. That's as simple as this is. Some people who are super mobile can maintain like this awesome 90-90, like really disciplined. If you have clients that can't do this, this is okay to start with. They can push into the ground to help them, have them release the hand. Even if they're going to fall back, let them utilize the hand to push them to the point where they need to come straight up. Okay? Until they can sort of get this type of thing going and getting reps on it. Now, obviously what we do left, we have to do right. Same thing, we switch it around. And it's kind of weird because I almost do this better than Matt does, but you're such a stud. Let's take a look at it. So he leans, he pushes, good. And he's really lighting up those glutes. He gets to the top, good. Come right up and get a good iso bang. He's banging into those glutes, and it's a really good prep. So that's basically the active 90-90 left and right. I probably didn't invent it. I don't know who did. But we like to utilize this, especially before we go into resisted speed work. And even when we're squatting or pulling, we just think it's a great way to get through activation, engagement, and ignition. So now, when we take this active 90-90 and progress it just a little bit, there are a few different ways to do it. Obviously, the first thing you could do, the first element you could add would be resistance. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to keep it simple. You could throw a tsunami bar on your back, like a really light noodle bar, that little SG20. You could hug a medicine ball. You could do a lot of different add-ons here, a lot of different variables to make this a little bit more difficult. But one of the ways that we like to play on this is to kind of thread it through into switching or alternating active 90-90. And I know this is like simple stuff, but this has become a real staple for us, in addition to all the other work you saw us doing with the goalies and the get-up, get-downs. So I ask you to go back and take a look at that. So now we have to get back down into this. So I'm the client. I can't really start up top like this. You're going to let me start here. So we're going to try to go through feeding through and alternating that. So you're going to make me get into my movement. So let's do this together, so they can see side by side. Let's do one more rep this side. Now we're going to switch through, and we're going to go right down into the other side. And push up. Matt fell. And push up. I told you, unrehearsed, unedited, and push up. And push up. Now, you can also vary the tempo and the cadence of this, how quickly you're going to go with the concentric versus the eccentric, and then ask for a good isometric when you get to the top of it. This is a beautiful preparatory movement for speed training when you really want to make sure that you have proper rotation in the hip. And it's just great for building abduction because, you know, some people don't abduct as well as you think they would. And having that front leg up in that external rotation and pushing against the ground just is a really proactive exercise. And it takes, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes to get through the whole progression. Now, one of the ways we wanted to show you, and we're down the cameraman, so we have to keep the camera stationary. One of the ways we wanted to show you that you can potentially add resistance is by coming on over to the Kaiser. So Matt is going to set up facing that wall as if he were going to do the active 90-90. So just set up there. We're on 6-inch Perform Better boxes. And if you don't have a Kaiser, you know, we like the Kaiser because you have you have the steady resistance, right? So you have the same resistance throughout the movement. You don't really deal with the issue with the band where you sort of have, you have deceleration, but there's progressive resistance value to the band, so it's kind of a catch-22 when it comes to this type of work. So Matt's going to set up here, and Matt, why don't we go right leg down, okay. So you really got to play around with this. Angles are everything when you're using this. Now when Matt's here, I want to get him resistance from the Kaiser. The anchor point is all important. You're going to have to play around with it. We didn't even set this up perfect for him because I'm not quite sure where he's going to catch that resistance. If you look at this from this position, if he were to sling this on, so come this way. If you were to sling this on him like this, you would now have to start playing around with where you would want that anchor point to be. Now, this is going to be an anchor point that takes him down to about, you're flat right now, right? Okay, this anchor point is going to pull him back at probably just the right degree setting. That's going to encourage him to really have to push hard into that box. Let me make sure it's not on like 1,000 pounds. Okay? So, go ahead. Perform that active 90-90, pushing up, and then down. And then up, and then down. Good. I'm sorry you guys can't see the anchor point, but listen, conversely, perhaps if you take this arm and you swing it up, and you reverse the sling, that's going to assist your people to perform the movement until they can do it on their own without any assistance, okay? So let's take a look at something else. Keep that in the same position. Flip around. Okay, good. Now, you can actually take this sling, take it off them, and then drop it to the inside, like so. Okay, so just turn real quick and let them see how it's positioned on you. Drop it to the inside, and now you can play around with that resistance at the anchor point, being that it's up front. Okay, so you want to make sure he's set where he's not dead, and I'm telling you guys, the line's not dead. There's a little bit of tension there. And what's really cool about this also, if you do have a Kaiser machine, you can manipulate it through the entire movement. So go ahead, Matt, start that active 90-90 and push up. And then down, and then up, and then down. One more time, up, and then down, and rest. So which anchor point was more resistance?
Probably this one.
This one? Okay. So because it's at a different degree, it's really coming right off his shoulder blade. He's really getting to experience that resistance with the movement that is really helping to elevate or make this more difficult. Once again, you could use a band, okay? You're going to deal with negative acceleration at the end of the movement and all that good stuff, but honestly, do what you can with what you have. It's more about the movement. So, if you had back grip on, let me just unhook you. You can keep the sling on. So keep in mind, we're going to talk more about activation versus engagement versus ignition coming up anyway, because we're excited to put this ground reaction forces series together, the fundamentals of ground reaction forces, because they're everywhere. You don't move until you produce a ground reaction force. And we're going to talk about that. But we use this particular movement, the active 90-90, and the alternating active 90-90 in practically every one of our warm-ups as we approach ignition. So listen, do us a favor. Shoot us an email. Ask us your questions. If we need to deviate a little bit, we're going to be sure to answer the questions that you ask. Like this one. This was populated from a lot of different emails and a lot of different direct requests. So listen, until the next time I see you, I appreciate your time. I'm Coach Massi here from M2 Speed, Strength, and Performance. Massi Machado Strength and Conditioning at one of our brand new facilities that we're still building out in Cortland Manor / Peekskill, New York. Until I see you next time, greatness is forged, not fabricated. That's your day.